Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
And live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. It is the Michael Dukes Show. Oh, man. Today, I don't even know what to say. We're going to do some election results from the Fairbanks North Star Borough and from the Kenai Peninsula Borough. So we're going to dive into some of the metrics there and some of the different stuff that is coming through. Not a lot of answers yet. There's some preliminary results, and we will go through those as we need to here this morning and discuss them at length. And we'll see what comes out of that. I'm interested to get your take on it as well this morning. In hour 2 of the broadcast, after we do some recap and some discussions on what's happening in various races around the state, we're going to be joined by State Senator Mike Shower, who's going to come on board for the Shower Hour of Power and just share with us his thoughts of everything that went on. No, I did not watch the VP debate last night. No, I just didn't do it. I've already made up my mind, and I've already made my decision, and I really didn't need to waste 2 hours of my life to whatever, right? There was just nothing there, and there's nothing nothing I dislike more than watching two grown men pick at each other. It was just crazy. All right. So we're going to go through some election results, preliminary. Again, all results are preliminary, and we will see what comes out from all the various areas and boroughs. But let me just say this. It's interesting to watch what happened in the various races, and it's interesting to see the differences between what's happened in the Fairbanks North Star Borough up north in the interior and what took place down on the Kenai Peninsula in the southern part of the state, because it's almost like it's a tale of two different it's all Alaska, right? But it's obviously regional. But it's interesting to see exactly what happened in all that. I was surprised to see how many races on the southern peninsula that were had only a single candidate in them. Where people were running unopposed. In the Fairbanks area, it seemed like for most seats, with the exception of, I think it was the IGU seats, the Interior Gas Utility at-large seats, but with every other seat, it seemed like there was at least two candidates, which I think is a much better solution. I've said it many, many times that I believe that even if it was my candidate that I wanted to win, even I am kind of dissatisfied when I see them running unopposed. because, iron sharpens iron. You need that competition to keep people sharp. You need them to keep them true to their principles. It just helps. And there were a lot. Every assembly seat for the Kenai Peninsula Borough, and there were 3 assembly seats up. Each one, the candidates ran unopposed. Board of Education seats. There was only 3 seats, and only one of them had more than one candidate. And then we get into some of the different board seats for the EMS areas, Joint Ops Board, et cetera, in the various areas. And most of them only had one candidate. Now, I know that's not a sexy. I know some of these, the senior service area, the recreational service area, the fire service areas, the EMS boards. I know that these are not, like sexy positions, but it's a little frustrating when only one person runs for them. And it really kind of makes me scratch my head as to, is it just disinterest? Is it just, the lack of a feeling of civic duty? Or is there something more going on there? Soldotna City Council, there was only a single candidate for the 2 seats in the Soldotna City Council. The Seldovia City Council, they had 2 seats available and only one candidate, and a 0% voter turnout. Not a single, I don't know. And maybe it's just that's what's reported, but 0 out of 197 voters voted in Seldovia. Because why bother, right? There's only a single candidate. He's going to win. I mean, technically, if nobody votes, do you actually win? Doesn't it take maybe one vote to, how do you certify an election when there was nobody turned up? John Kennedy Sr. is the winner, except for he didn't even vote for himself. Now, again, these are just preliminary results, and maybe those will turn up here in the thing. Participation also was another issue, and I gotta say, with my adopted hometown being Homer, and that means down on the KPV, I'm a little disappointed in the overall turnout. Now, again, you've got a lot of single seat things going on here, but the overall voter turnout in the Kenai Peninsula was just 13%. Well, 13.6%. All right, I'll give you the half a percentage point. Now, commensurately, the Fairbanks North Star Borough turnout was 23.5%. Still not great. Why don't we have voter turnout of at least over 30%? At least 1 out of 3 should at least vote, right? 1 out of 3, that would be a good one. But we had at least a 23.5% voter turnout in the Fairbanks North Star Borough. Maybe it is voter fatigue. Kevin McCabe just says voter fatigue. We need all elections to be on a single day. One person, one vote, one day. I do not disagree. That's I think that it would make more sense, and it would give people a chance to, go out there and do it all at once instead of having to worry about it. I want to go through some of the election results, but these are just kind of the things that hit me as I was looking these over, and I was laying in bed last night at 8:45 or whatever when the preliminary results came out for the various races, and I was just struck by that. How many seats had no challengers? They were all a single. There's a few that have, 1 or 2 challengers, but most of them were just a single, and especially the assembly. That to me, I can understand maybe some of the boards and things like that, because again, it's not a high power position. It's not a sexy position. I can't say that I'm one of the assembly members, although I don't know why you would think that was sexy necessarily. But the assembly members, of all the people on this ballot, of all the different positions on this ballot, I would say only the city mayors and the assembly and the city mayors are probably the highest, horsepower positions, I guess you would say. But in the KPB, one candidate for every assembly seat, Assembly District 1, 6, and 9. And they all only had one vote. And Californsky, the Assembly District 1, which covers Californsky, why show up? They had a 3.8% voter turnout. Because again, why show up? It's kind of crazy. It's crazy and frustrating. And maybe it is voter fatigue. Maybe it is a case of, well, there was only one person, so why bother? Well, there was other things on the ballot. You had the hospital vote down on the Kenai Peninsula. Up in Fairbanks, you had the tax cap vote, which is super important to restrict the size and growth of government. That was up for a renewal, another 2-year renewal. Or maybe there's something totally different. I don't know. Maybe I'm just something that I'm not seeing. But it's interesting to watch the differences between the two major areas in the state of Alaska. And I would say it's interesting to see, in part because Fairbanks has become let me just say it's become a purple area, more blue area than red. When I was growing up and when I was younger, first married, Fairbanks was a pretty conservative area. And now it has gone more and more towards the progressive side of the philosophical fence, which, things happen like that, but places swing back and forth. But they are also very good at getting out the vote and doing some of those things. And folks on the Kenai Peninsula, that's one of the more redder areas of the state, with the exception of a few enclaves. But maybe folks who are on the conservative side are just like, I'm done. Or maybe they're just like, I don't want to participate. I don't want to run. I don't want to vote. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I just found it interesting to look at the differences. That's what that's what I said. Chris in the chat room says, I've heard here in town that they did not want to waste their time to vote, and we had only 2 items on the ballot, and the hospital wasn't on there for us in Soldovia. Chris is in Soldovia. So Chris, did you vote? Do you know anybody? Because they're reporting 0 votes in Soldovia. Now, again, the ballots have got to get across the water, so maybe that's part of the problem. But that's, it's an interesting question. All right. We're going to jump on there and start taking a look at this. And I think we will start off with let me be preferential here. We'll start off with the Kenai Peninsula Borough. Since it's got my adopted hometown of Homer in it, let me start off with the KPB, and then we'll jump into the Fairbanks North Star Borough in the next segment. The Michael Duke Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We will return with more in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Back right after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
There's got to be something going on there. I just think they probably haven't received the ballots yet, because I can't believe that. Oh, Chris just said that she and her husband voted. So, there's at least 2 votes in there. right? So, I mean, apparently, yeah, I mean, when you see a 0 like that, to me, it just means that's just weird. It must have been. And the candidate would have to vote for himself, right? You take a photo op. Here I am voting for myself. So, there you go. Chris says, when I went to vote, I saw 2 other people voting. So it is, it was, think about it. Rick says, I seen an ad from the left. It was a negative ad, and it said that Nick said Social Security was a Ponzi scheme. Well, that is true. Think about it. Sorry, a little off topic, but this is what we were talking about yesterday with Nick Begich. It's an ad in the Huff Post, right? And they took parts of that ad and took it out of context, but it is a Ponzi scheme. The money has been invested, but there's not enough money to pay all the investors, right? There's not enough money in there to pay all the people. It used to be that it took, that it was just a couple people, 3-4 people. There would be, 14 workers to support every one worker because it was spread out so much. And now it's a lot less. You got to have, it's only being spread to a fewer number of workers. So those paying in are actually the money's coming back out. Oh no, the money's there. Don't worry about it. But you can see how it was likened to a Ponzi scheme, Mark says, most normal people with jobs don't even know there's a local election in October. It needs to be the same as the state and national. Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot of people who just don't know. Well, they're just not paying attention. I mean, I always knew because I paid attention. But that doesn't necessarily mean the same for everybody, right? That's just not the same for everybody. Okay, what else we got here? Let me see what else you guys have been talking about. Let me scroll back to the beginning. Frank says, so it really wasn't Elections Day yesterday? Okay. I mean, I know Harold's not here, Frank, but you don't have to step up to be troll in chief. I mean, yes, yesterday was Election Day. Now, the election certification day is a whole nother day. There you go. Greg says he watched the debate and Timmy got spanked. Okay. I mean, I don't know. I haven't even wasted my time with it. Because again, it's not even going to matter. Not even going to matter. Kevin says, I wonder if the lack of candidates, even on the liberal side of the fence, is caused by the lawfare and the frivolous attacks. Well, I'm sure that the negativity has a chilling effect on people. They're thinking, do I want to jump into the middle of this madness, this Cuisinart of innuendo and everything? I'm sure that they're probably thinking, maybe I should not. I'm sure there's a chilling effect as that for sure. Okay. I'm scrolling through here. The difference, Ice Near Wolves over on Rumble says, the difference of more than one candidate maybe is there an agenda to change issues with opposing philosophies. The difference of more than one candidate maybe. Is there an agenda to change? I'm not exactly sure what you're trying to say there, Wolves. Maybe you can clarify that for me. But anyway. All right. Yeah. Defined benefits. The Social Security is a defined benefits program that's going to be broke in a few years. That's true. That's probably more accurate than the whole Ponzi scheme. Although you could kind of think of it like a Ponzi scheme, I guess. It's... There you go. All right. We got to jump back into it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
All right. We are back. Local elections is the game. Michael Dukes is my name. Let's I don't know where that came from. Sometimes I wonder about even myself. I mean, we all should wonder about me. You guys should all wonder about me sometimes, because what is going on in here? All right, well, let's get started, shall we? Shall we dance? Shall we get into this and start talking about it? I think so. I think we should get into this and start digging in. All right, let's take a look at what we've got going on here. We have got a there we go. Sorry, I'm just trying to get stuff squared away so that I can get you started. So we've got the report from the KPB from the borough, and it was interesting also to note that the borough it concised it had it all broken out. The KPB has it all broken out by district, so you can actually. And I got a little confused because I couldn't find. I'm like, where are the results of everything here? Because which ones do I want? Do I have to add them all up? At first, I thought I had to add them all up, and then I figured out that there was a summary page at the very top of the sheet. But let's get started with this, and you guys can figure it out for yourself and see where we need to go from here. But let's get started with the Kenai Peninsula Borough, shall we? And take a look at what's going on here. So first and foremost, as I said, in the assembly, they only had one candidate for each race. So James Baisden, Cindy Eklund, and Willie Dunn, they all won. Surprise! They all won their races, and no worries there. Just jump on in and get her done. The Board of Education. This is where I was hoping to see a little bit of a change, because our very own Jeannie Reveal was on the ballot there with Sarah Douthat. Anyway, Jeannie unfortunately got beat 317 to 160 votes. But again, only a 9% turnout in that district. Apparently nobody cares. I mean, okay, that's fine. All right. So sorry, Jeannie. It was a good run. I mean, it was, it's always interesting to see what it's like. But don't get discouraged. Don't grow weary in well-doing. The Board of Education School Board in Sterling Funny River only had one candidate, 3.9% voter turnout for Funny River. That was Kelly Sizek, and then Tim Doherty. He was the other school board race. That was he won because he was the only person winning. The Black Creek Fire Service area, a couple folks running. Vote for one, and it's a dead heat, 97 to 97. So don't tell me your vote doesn't count. 97 to 97. So, and again, these are all unofficial. There's probably still some absentee and question ballots that need to be counted and filed in. But as of right now, it's a dead heat for the Bear Creek Fire Service area, Seat C. And then we've got the Joint Ops Board for the CPEMS area, Seat C, Seat D, Seat F. Most of those are single participants, except for the Nikiski Fire Area, Seat F. Alan Butte apparently is beating Kristen Snow right now. Nikiski, you know what we want to get to. We know we're working our way down to the hospital bond here. Just give me a minute. But again, all these single votes. North Penn Recreation Service Area, Seat D. Kristen Snow was also, she running for two different seats? She's running for the Nikiski Fire Service Area in Seat F, and she's also running for the North Penn Recreation Service Area, Seat D. Can she hold both seats at once? Interesting. She is behind in that second race, though. Seward Creek Bear Flood Service Area, all single. The South Kenai Peninsula Hospital Service Area seats. Again, these are the seats that help control and advise the South Peninsula Hospital. 2 of the 3 seats only had a single candidate, so Catherine Alt and Helen Armstrong both won handily because they were the only ones. And then you had Linda Reed and Jonathan Young. Linda is currently ahead of Jonathan by about 150 votes for seat C. And here's the big one, drum roll, please. The Kenai Borough Proposition Number 1, South Kenai Peninsula Hospital Service Area General Obligation Bond. Crushingly destroyed. Almost a 2-to-1 margin. No so for you. Nearly 20% voter turnout, 19.54% voter turnout, and overwhelmingly they said no, none for you. So, I mean, that's the good news, is that it's gone for now. Also down on the peninsula, the Homer City mayor, Rachel Lord, is now currently ahead of Jim Anderson by about 50 votes, 51 votes right now out of 1,200. So I don't know how many question ballots or absentee ballots they still have yet to count, but it's still pretty close. Shelley Erickson and Donna Alderholt both on the city council because it's a vote for 2. You go on the ballot and vote for 2, and there was only 2. The Kenai City Council, you vote for 2, and you got the 2 that were there: Sovala Casina and Deborah Sonart. The Seldovia City Council, again, John Kennedy Sr. was the only candidate. The Seward City Council vote for 2, and I believe that it's the top 2 vote getters. If I'm not correct on that, somebody from Seward will have to correct me. But I believe that means Casey Warner and John Osenga are the 2 winners of that race as of right now. But Osenga is only ahead of Michael Calhoun by 10 votes. So depending on how many questions or absentee ballots need to be counted, that could change. But it looks like Casey Warner will be at least on the seat. And then the Soldotna City Council, both of the seats, again, in Soldotna, the city council seats, 1 candidate. What's going on? And what's going on down on the peninsula, guys? Somebody tell me, why is there only 1 candidate in so many of these races? I do not understand. I really don't understand. Brian says in the chat room that if Kristen Snow is allowed to fill both of those seats, her life will be filled with meetings. Yeah, it is true. I don't know the rules on these some of these advisory boards, if you can sit on more than 1 advisory board at a time, but I mean, she's either really ambitious or a glutton for punishment, one of the 2. Because she's trying to get on the Nikiski Fire Service Area board and on the North Peninsula Recreation Service Area board. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes from there. But I think that's good news. I mean, again, if you had told me last week that the hospital initiative was going to be so crushingly defeated in that, I would have been doubtful, because I mean, here it is. Here's the thing right here. 19.54% voter turnout on this one. 2,751 votes cast. 1,761 vote no opposes the bond. 990 votes yes supporting the bond. So again, almost a 2-to-1 margin. People were just, and I think you could see it in those final days. that there was a lot of money being thrown around. Now, I don't know exactly how much, but by some estimates and by some of the people that I talked to down there, it was nearly $100,000 in nearly $100,000 in advertising was being funded by, was it the hospital? Was it the borough? Was it the friends of the hospital that was it doing it? Was it the foundation? I mean, I don't know. But there was a lot of advertising going on the radio, on the internet, mailers to everybody's homes. And people started asking questions. People started asking questions like, what does this really mean? And then the interview with Dr. Raymond and Ryan Smith, the CEO, by Chris Story, who did a yeoman's job on this. I mean, there are a few times in your life as a radio broadcaster that you can look back and say, that was a good interview. That was important. What we did there was important. And that Chris can look back on that with pride to know that played a big role in changing people's minds and in educating people and in getting them informed on the issue. And so Chris can be very proud of that, because I saw that thing being shared all over. Anytime there was a post that I saw that came up that had to deal with a hospital bond, Chris's interview would be linked and say, if you want to get more info, go over here and listen. And so it was, that I think was, I said, sunlight's the best disinfectant, right? Shining the light on things and giving real, true data. That's what's important. And so the powers that be were kind of foiled on this. And I think rightly so. I think that there was a lot more questions on this ballot. It raised more questions than it answered, that's for sure. And I think this idea that somehow this all had to do with making healthcare better, easier, more affordable. And though they didn't really say those things, I mean, the mayor did in one of his interviews on the paper. He said, "Oh, this will make healthcare more affordable," which turned out to not be true. That was countermanded by what Ryan Smith said in Chris Story's interview. But I mean, that's what people expect when you do these kind of things. They expect if we're trying to better a position, then if we're trying to do something, then it should be to make things better, stronger, higher quality, more affordable. And yet there was just a lot of questions on this about, why are we expanding more? Why are we doing these certain things? Why are things going like the way that they're going? And it just raised a lot more questions that I think people were ready to. And I think people just didn't trust it. I think that's what happened. I think people just didn't. I just think people didn't trust what was being said. And good on them for not, for not doing it. And it is their service area, so they get a chance to choose. Kathy in the chat room just said Dorotha, I don't know who that is, but said the hospital had some $100,000 to promote the bond, $50,000 from the hospital and $50,000 from the hospital foundation. Which again, even though the hospital and the hospital foundation, it's all a borough entity, right? You guys all voted yourself these healthcare powers, which in the Fairbanks North Star Borough, they didn't do that. Just note to self. But so public money chasing public money, which, although this is what they did in Fairbanks for that special election back in May to bust the tax cap, they spent $125,000 of public money to try and squeeze another $10 million of public money out of the people and bust the tax cap. It's fascinating. This is a fascinating thing to watch, is it not? Every time. All right, we're going to continue here in just a moment. We've got more coming up. We're going to talk a little bit about the results from the Fairbanks North Star Borough. Things not quite so cut and dried up there. It's going to be interesting. We'll see what happens. We got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're in the break right now. Okay. I'm scrolling backwards to see what you said. South Peninsula Hospital had a $59 million profit margin. No, it was according to the interview with Chris Story, they had $150 million in revenue and they ran about a 3.45 to 4% profit margin, which means they made about $4 million, right? $4 or $5 million. So that was their it's not a nonprofit, it's a not for profit, which is different, right? Those are two different things whatsoever. But it's a different thing. All right, let me look this up here. Okay. All right. What do we got here? Yeah, people in the it wasn't that one. What was it? Was it the Palmer? I'm sorry. I'm just looking. I'm looking back to see if there was what are the official election supporting documents. There we go. Unofficial. I was looking for the unofficial. Well, that's it. Right here. I'm sorry. I was just looking for the unofficial election results for the city of Palmer. Because while the borough changed their official days around, the cities didn't. 5% voter turnout. What? Election day precincts, blah, 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 blah. 4.4. Whoops, you guys can't see it because I've zoomed in. Let me zoom. Excuse me while I zoom out. 4.46% voter turnout. Oh my gosh. 4.4% voter turnout. Yeah, that's that I has a sad now because that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. They definitely need to shift all these things over to one single day, right? One single day is what we should be dealing with right now, but we're not. Okay. Let me go back over to the comments here to see what else is going on. Greg says Dr. Raymond's interview really helped. I agree. Denise says, my husband was the last one to vote in the Matsu at the Menard location. 64 people voted the whole day. If that doesn't scream change the date, I don't know what does. Yeah, exactly. Scrolling down here. The BS was laid on thick. Yeah, for sure. We would have had to pay the bill, but we did not get to vote on the hospital bond. Glad it did not pass. The commercial against Leslie Hajdukovic Had at the bottom the small print contribution statement saying money came from out of state. The following ad for Vote No on 2 has no such statement. It should have. Vote No on 2 is an issue ad, and it's required to have the top 3 contributors. If it's an issue ad put in by a PAC, it's required to have the top 3 contributors. If you see something like that, Jim, then you can report it to APOC if they don't have the stuff on it. Bill says, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I read somewhere that the CEO of the hospital makes $2.5 million a year. I don't know. I'd like to know if that's true, because I'm obviously in the wrong business. Maybe I should have become a hospital administrator if that is the case. What about the city of Houston, says Tawny? I don't know. I didn't Google it. Just all you have to do is Google City of Houston, Alaska election results, and it should take you there. But I got 30 seconds to get back here, so I'm not going to do it. Kathy says not correct. 990 tax filing, more like he makes like 500K, 300 to 500K. I thought, didn't Chris ask him how much he made? Maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe I'm misremembering. All right, well, let's get into it. We're going to jump over to the Fairbanks North Star Borough results, where things are not quite so cut and dried and clear. Let's get to it. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Would you please like and share this show wherever you are? Like and share and follow and ring the bell. Let's do it.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay. We're jumping into the Fairbanks North Star Borough election results now. I just looked at the election results for the city of Palmer, because while the Mat-Su as a borough is changing their voting day, some of the cities have 3.5% voter turnout in Palmer. We have got to get we've got to get our elections all on one day. Can we just do that? Can we just make it a mission that we get all of the various communities, boroughs, municipalities, everything, just get it all on the general election day, please? Can we just get it all on one day in November? I mean, people can't remember. I don't know. I remember that there was somebody was holding their municipal elections in September. Another borough was doing it in October. Anchorage, of course, has been doing theirs in April. How are people supposed to keep track of all this stuff? They're busy. All right, let's go take a look at the Fairbanks North Star Borough election results. All right. So what do we got here? What do we got? Well, we've got the election day results for the Fairbanks North Star Borough. Let me adjust this here just a little bit so we can see what's going on. The Fairbanks North Star Borough, the city of Fairbanks, the city of North Pole, grand total as far as looking at the turnout, the borough as a whole had a 23.5% voter turnout. Not bad. City of Fairbanks, 16, almost 17% voter turnout in the city of Fairbanks. And the city of North Pole, with only 386 people actually out there, was actually voting, rather, out of 2,000, is a 19% voter turnout. So solid double-digit turnouts all the way around. Definitely not bad. The borough was quick to point out on their website, first things first, that there are 975 outstanding absentee ballots and 546 outstanding question ballots. So 1,500 ballots are still in the mix. 1,500 ballots are still in the mix. And they will not be counted until October the 8th. So this is the preliminary results, and nothing is going to change until the 8th when they count all these ballots. Now, think about that for a minute. Potentially 1,500 ballots, question and absentee, almost 1,000 absentee, and about 500 question ballots for the various offices and everything else. Well, these things are pretty darn close. These things are darn close for sure. Let's take a look a little bit here. Let me spread this out here so that we can take a peek at it. There are a lot of races out here, but let's take a look at the big doggies to begin with. Borough mayor race. The two main opponents were John Coghill and Grier Hopkins. Robert Shields is kind of the Dustin Darden of Fairbanks. For those of you who are in Anchorage and know what I'm talking about, I don't know who the corollary would be down on the peninsula, but he's kind of just the spoiler who comes in and has an agenda on a certain issue, and that's what he runs on. Currently, Grier Hopkins is in the lead by 43 votes. 43 votes against John Coghill. You could tell, and this is a theme, my friends. This is a theme. Okay. 48.17% to 47.93%. Now, Robert Shields, he took 3.54% of the vote. I can't tell whether I would say he probably took more votes away from Grier Hopkins than John Coghill, just based on what I know of Robert's politics and kind of what it is. So this is an interesting spoiler. Is it a spoiler for Coghill or Hopkins? I think it's more towards Hopkins personally, but I don't know. But again, with 1,500 votes standing out there, this race is a toss-up. 100% toss-up on that. All right, we go over to Borough Assembly Seat A. Borough Assembly Seat A. Miguel Ramirez, the newcomer, coming in here, running for Borough Assembly, former Marine, running against David Guttenberg, the longtime legislator, very well-known progressive politician. That one is pretty settled right now because there is about 1,300 votes separating the two. Although Miguel had a very good showing against David Guttenberg. Guttenberg is a name that is, it's well known in Alaskan politics. The guy's been in politics for 30 years. So to come up and have and come within about 8 points of him in this first race, that's a pretty good deal, my friend. Congratulations. He's a former Marine, not an ex. Yes, he is a former Marine. What are you talking about, Frank? I don't know. Anyway. So Borough Assembly Seat A. That is Seat A. Now we move over to Seat F, where Tammy Wilson is running against Garrett Armstrong. Armstrong had a lot of support. They do not want to see Tammy back in that seat. There was a lot of back and forth at the very end there with this. And Tammy Wilson, though, is currently ahead by just over a point and a point and a half or so. That puts her ahead by roughly 300 votes. So this seat potentially mathematically could break towards Armstrong in one way or the other, but we just don't know yet. But as of this moment, Tammy Wilson is still ahead on that one. Seat G is Kristen Kelly, this gal, oof, man, and Jimmy Cash. Kristen Kelly, the incumbent, she is currently ahead by just under 300 votes, 260-something votes ahead right now against Jimmy Cash. So again, potentially this could swing one way or the other with those 1,000 absentee votes and the 500 question ballots as well. They just don't know. Then we go over to the school board. Carol Hubbard Loa and Tamara Cruz Roselius. This race also very close. only about 280 votes between the two, with Loa Carroll Hubbard now in the lead on that one. Again, that could change. April Smith and Morgan Dulane. Again, about 250 votes separate those two as well, with April Smith, who is a former school board member. I think she was the incumbent as well. Morgan Dulane, we had her on the program, and she seemed surprisingly reasonable, although she was one of the ones that was behind that special vote. She said she'd come back on the program to discuss stuff with us if she won. She said she'd learned her lesson on the vote. I don't know if she was snowing me or what, but if it all shakes out and Morgan Dulane actually does win, we'll try and hold her to that. We will try and hold her to that. And then we get to the Interior Gas Utility Board, where there was just basically single candidates in all of those. The big one, though, was the tax cap. Proposition 1. That, again, overwhelmingly about 2.2 to 1. 2.2 to 1 on election day itself. The totals with early voting and everything else, 66% yes for the tax cap, 33% no. I would really like to meet somebody who voted no on the tax cap. I really would like to. I'd really like to know what they are actually thinking. Then we get into the city council races. Jerry Cleworth, he decisively beat Sean McDonald for the city council seat. And then you had a three-way race for seat B. And unfortunately, it looks like Valerie Therian is going to be back in there. She's an interesting cat. And Aaron Crook, unfortunately, took the Red Lantern prize on that one. And then the city of North Pole, they have a brand new mayor now. Larry Turch is the new mayor. And then Santa Claus is the latest city council member. No, really, Santa Claus is the latest city council member. So those are the results from Fairbanks. I mean, good news on some of that. The tax cap is back in. Some of these other races are still too close to call. We'll have to see what goes on from there, but we'll be watching. All right, hour 2 will continue. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Mike Shower should be joining us up next in hour 2. Okay. Once a Marine is always a Marine. No, there's a difference between former Marine and ex-Marine, right? You don't say ex-Marine. You could say former or retired, but you're still a Marine. Yes, you're right. Hoorah. Hoorah. It's not hurrah. That's hoorah. That's the Army, man. Hoorah. Semper Fi. All right. Sorry. I'm sure Miguel will correct me if I'm wrong on something on there. I'm sorry. I'm looking through here. See if there's anything else. Okay. Now I'm caught up. Top 10 hospitals in Alaska and what they netted from their patients. Brian, can you clip out that Jeannie's comment there? Can you clip out the link from that and send it to me, please? So I can go back and look at that. I'd like to look at that. So Brian, if you get a sec, could you do that for me? The left will never allow all elections on one day. I agree that they would be scared of that, because that would give it benefits them to have it all split up, because private interests can, private special interests can really take over those things. And then Miguel's in here. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thanks to Michael and all. Miguel, thank you for running, my friend. That was a good race. I mean, you did very, very well against. That's Guttenberg is like a fixture in Alaska politics. You did very well against him in that case. 1,500 question votes, said Jeannie. I'm thinking there's a problem with the ballot. People didn't understand. No, there were 500 question ballots, and you can vote a question ballot. That's a whole different thing. A question ballot is not. I voted question ballots many years simply because I didn't have time to make it all the way back to my own precinct. So I voted a question ballot in another precinct because I was working a lot. And that's how she rolls. But it was 1,000 absentee ballots. So 1,000 absentee ballots and 500 question ballots. That's where we're at on that. Ron, hello, good morning. How are you?
I didn't even get the text, so I could say it probably, maybe, possibly might make it.
Yeah, no, I figured I'd just call you and see how it went because I couldn't face the. It's my way of getting back at you. That's what it is.
And I was so hurt. I mean, I was incredibly hurt.
I could see.
Terrible.
I could see the butt hurt from here. I could see the butt hurt from here.
Up.
That's right. All right.
Totally broken up.
Hold a second. I want to get to a couple of these comments here. Hold on a minute. Ron says, and Ron, I think Ron is summating the feelings of many people who've been watching politics in the interior for many years. Guttenberg and Hopkins in charge of Fairbanks. We know how that will go. I mean, not only are they both progressives, I mean, they're related, right, through marriage. It's all a big family cabal. It feels like it's the new nobility. It feels like they're just, Ron is not wrong. We all know how that will go. That's where it's at. When you're on the slope and you wake up with the flu, you know it's not going to be a good day. Thank you, Brian. Brian just hit me with a link on that. Most people who are planning to vote no on the tax cap thought it meant yes because it was a no last year. It changes almost every year. Yeah, you have to really pay attention to that. So people vote for the tax cap, but then they vote for candidates who want to bust the tax cap. Jason, you can't explain these two diametrically opposed ideas, right? I mean, that is the truth, my friend. You cannot do those things, cannot do those things. Guttenberg is like old luggage, always hanging around. I mean, he's been there for forever. Meet and greet at Dozer's house on the 7th. McCabe and Costello. Okay. All right. Let's do it. Let's do it. I guess that's it. I guess I'm all caught up. Fat Ray says to Miguel Ramirez, come back for round 2, Miguel. Next race, you'll have some name recognition to build off of. Yeah, I mean, this is where we say don't grow weary in well-doing, my friends. That's exactly what we do. All right. Let's go back over to Mr. Shower now that I've ignored him long enough to make it worth my while. You all ready to go, my friend? You feeling froggy this morning? Feeling frisky?
Of course I am. If you think you can hurt my feelings, this does not mean what you think it means.
It does not mean what. I mean, I don't think I can hurt your feelings. You have to have feelings to be able to hurt them. I mean, I know that you just don't.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like a robot. Just can't get it.
Tell me.
Can't touch me. Can't touch that.
Tell me. Did you happen to watch the debate last night, or were you kinder and gentler to your psyche than most of us?
I actually figured that this one, watching Vance, and Waltz is such a nutcase, the guy with his body language, and he is just so far out there. I'm like, you know what? Vance seems like a pretty normal guy, poor Marine, whatever. I was like, I'm not really going to waste my time. I had other people watching for me, and I was so busy. And Michelle was waving signs for Victoria Hudson, who actually won last night in Palmer.
Right.
He has a young conservative lady, which was awesome to see. So we were pretty packed. And Michael, I've been spending so much time on the Yes on 2 campaign. I just didn't have time, but I figured it would
Well,
go
no, I mean,
okay.
hey, don't
So,
make excuses to me because I didn't watch it intentionally because I just didn't care. We're gonna
I don't mind
we
watching
gotta
it, but
go.
I just didn't have time.
All right, hold the line. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Welcome to Hour 2 of the Big Radio Show. If you're just joining us, we just finished up with election results for both the Kenai Peninsula Borough and the Fairbanks North Star Borough. Some interesting discussions and everything else. You can rewind or go back and listen to it on the podcast if you missed anything. And get the full rundown if you want some audio commentary along with that. Meanwhile, Hour 2 today, it is Wednesday, our normal day for what we lovingly call the shower hour of power. So let's get to it. On the phones with us right now is none other than the man, the myth, the legend, State Senator Mike Shower. He joins us right now. Good morning, my friend. Good morning.
Good morning. Definitely a myth. There's no doubt about that one. So I don't know about the rest of them.
A legend in his own mind. It's a
exactly.
No. Exactly.
Are we all?
I am a legend. I mean, I talk to myself in that voice all the. You are a massive legend in your own mind. It's like trying to decide which voice to listen to. That's what it's coming back for. All
Not
right.
only handsome, they're powerful and
yeah, exactly. I'm powerful, strong, and persuasive. That's what I am. Anyway, we were just talking before the break about the vice president debate, and I made a big announcement in Hour 1 that I didn't even bother. I've already made my decision, right? I mean, I've made my decision, and so what good is it going to for me to spend 2 hours watching these knuckleheads, beat on each other verbally or whatever? It's just it's gotten to the point to where I'm just like, I've made my decision. I'm moving forward, whatever. I don't even care. And maybe that's how some people feel, although they deleted the part where they're like, I've made my decision. I think that a lot of people just jump to the I don't care part and they're like, whatever, it doesn't even matter. It's all they're nihilists, right? They've all read Nietzsche and it's like life means nothing. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to walk away. So I don't know. What's your thought on all this bread and circuses and pomp and circumstance around all these debates and everything?
Well, look, Michael, I mean, number one, if you want to look at it from a baseline, we spend so much money on presidential elections. They seem to be up on the $2 billion plus mark now for a presidential election, which is more than the GDP of some of the smallest countries on the planet. It is beyond the pale for how much time, energy, money, and theater we put on for an election that should just be a couple candidates, from across the spectrum, telling people, stumping, going on the Abe Lincoln train tour, it stops and people gather, you give them your stump speech, tell them what you'd like to do and move on. And then the newspapers write about some, opinions and what people think, and then everybody votes. That's what it should be. But it's become, like you said, this whole, let's have games for 100 days, and entertain the people. And the senators are going, he's smarter than I thought. He's going to give them death and they'll love him for it. I mean, we are in the theater for sure. And what I'm really concerned about, Michael, has nothing to do with a bunch of knuckleheads. I know you're kind of using that language for the people that we have at the top of all the tickets. What I'm concerned about is where's the U.S.'s leadership right now? I'm watching the Middle East burn. I'm watching Ukraine and Russia. I'm watching China making moves in Taiwan. I'm watching, Russian bombers with Chinese fighters escorting them and having close passes with Russian fighters as well on our own ADIZ border in
Right.
Alaska.
Don't get ahead of me.
All of this,
Don't get ahead of me. I
I
want to
know, I'm
talk
just
about
saying,
that
but
later.
but all of this stuff that is happening around the world, and where is the U.S. president? There is such a vacuum of leadership. It is a great sucking sound across the planet right now, where the U.S. used to have some strength projected and some ability to go, if you do that, we're going to get involved and try to be a stabilizing force. And there's nothing, Michael. Nobody sees Biden. The guy is MIA. Nobody appears to be really leading the country, or it's the elites pulling the power strings, behind the closed doors, the wealthy and the very powerful. But the world, I mean, I honestly believe we are probably as close to, and this is not hyperbole, and I don't like saying this, but that's what I feel looking at the data. I feel like we're as close to World War III kicking off right now as we've ever been in our lifetimes. I mean, did you see what happened? I know people were watching what happened in Israel yesterday with Iran. I mean, the Middle East is about to go up as a powder keg. And there's a line we cross here. We're not going to be able to come back and stop it.
Right.
So I'm looking at the U.S. and going, stop the theater, boys and girls. Time to grow up and put your big boy pants on. We need to be leading.
Right.
We need to be showing our allies stability. We need to be securing our borders. We need to be working on our economy, because the downstream effects of that, what happens when the United States basically shows a big power vacuum? Then you have Gazprom and Russia twisting the arms of Europe because of the gas line, and they're able to go into Ukraine and start a war. You have China buying all of basically Southwest Asia and Africa and creating their Silk Road, so they're going to be the dominant player, and they don't care about their own people or the environment. If you're on the left side of the spectrum, you just see all these things happening and going, where are we? They used to turn to us and look to us for leadership and freedom and go, we need the stability and strength of the United States, both economic, military, culture. And we're just like MIA on the stage right now. So like I'm kind of like the theater. Stop the theater, guys.
Well,
we need to be back in the place of leading and showing people stability.
Yeah. I mean, we all look back through the lens of nostalgia and say, in the good old days, right? But let's look back 15 years ago. I think it was 15 years ago that was it. Well, let me see. When did Fred Thompson? That was the thing that for presidential run. So it was 2008. Okay, so yeah, about 15 years ago, Fred Thompson was running for president, and I really noticed it then. It really came to my mind because you remember, presidential elections usually only kicked off, like the Labor Day before the year before the elections, right? It was just about a year, and he refused. Fred Thompson, who I thought was a great candidate, quite honestly, refused to jump in and start the race any earlier. But everybody else had already been. We have started. These election cycles used to be, like you said, a 12-month cycle where we get to know the candidate, and then we could vote for the election. We could vote for the candidate. Now it's a 2, it's a 3. I mean, it's a perpetual. It's a never ending. They get into office, they immediately start running for office again, and people are just tired of a lot of that stuff. Like I said, the theater of it. And you're right. And when we show a lack of leadership and we get caught up in the theater, people are frustrated. The American people are tired of it. And this is what we get. We are getting what we're getting right now because of the lack of leadership from all sides and just this continual battle of theater and slugfest. And people just get tired of looking at it.
No, I don't think you're wrong, Michael. Like I said, I'm more worried about than even the theater is what it is, and they're going to do it. But I am worried about the lack of U.S. leadership, and then our alliances with our normal neighbors, whether that be, for example, Japan, South Korea, most of Europe, partners in Latin and South America. And I think they're just looking and going, where's the United States? I mean, whatever. And things are happening. And it is a concern right now. Like I said, I'm watching the Middle East basically go into a meltdown. If much more happens with Iran and Israel, or God forbid, Iran decides they're just going to just lose their minds and light a nuke off in Israel, the Middle East, we're in World War III. We are there. And I don't think we'll be able to pull back from that brink. So many things are going to break on that. And these are the things I think that we need. We're talking about freaking, I don't know, Michael, he, him, they, them, Z, her, whatever, and feminine health products and boys' restrooms in Minnesota and God knows what else these guys are talking about. How about we deal with the world's problems? We deal with our economy. We deal with an open border. How about we deal with Russia and China and what's happening on the world stage? That's what I need and expect of my leaders in our country at that level.
Right.
Instead, what we're talking about with the moderators of the left-wing American legacy media, big pharma, big tech, you name it, whatever, they should be talking about the things that matter because those are the policy issues that we need them to do. I don't need Tim Walz dictating what we do in men's bathrooms in Alaska. What I need J.D. Vance and Tim Walz and Trump and whoever is going to lead to be talking about is what's the U.S. strategy to handle what's going on with Russia and Europe and the mess there, or China and its expansion throughout Southeast and Southwest Asia, or how they're going to secure our borders and make sure our economy kicks in. That's what I want them talking about because that's what I need them to do. I can't do that here. We'll worry about what happens in Alaska. Let Oklahomans and Californians and New Yorkers worry about what happens in those states. You got a bigger job, boys and girls.
Right.
And it's the world stage.
Right.
It has nothing to do with what's going on, these stupid little things they're talking about that don't matter.
Right.
It should be state issues anyways.
Instead of fighting over whether or not we should put tampons in boys' bathrooms or whatever else, why are we talking about things like, I don't know, national debt, overall spending, security of our nation? Why aren't we talking about those things? They just seem to become an afterthought.
Yeah, they're not even talking about the debt. That's going to crush us. Nobody's even discussing that in any of these debates. So not even coming up as a question. And even for Americans, I've looked at Americans good. Don't you care about this anymore? I mean, this is going to crush our kids and our grandkids. And I think it's like down in like the 20th percentile, like 25-30% of people even mention it in polling that the debt or deficit even matters anymore. It's like Americans are just giving up on that too, unfortunately. But that will come back to bite us, and it's going to at some point, whenever that happens.
Mike Shower is our guest, state senator, District O. So we watched this.
A ray of sunshine.
A ray of sunshine. You remind me of a post that I shared on Facebook the other day. Something like, I don't remember what it was, but something like, do you ever feel like armoring up a bulldozer? Kind of thing. It was like, this is a killdozer. I know, killdozer. And I'm just like, that's kind of how I feel sometimes. Like, this is just madness. I mean, of all the things that we just hit on, and I'm just going to say the one thing that is the most dangerous that everyone refuses to acknowledge or talk about is the debt in this country, because it would do more to damage if we don't put a stop to it. And not only, let's just say we start to default on the debt, okay? And it's 120% of GDP right now. They're predicting in the next 8 years it could go to 200% of GDP, which means we're using the credit card to pay the credit card to pay the credit card. That would have catastrophic effects, but even the bigger knock-on effect is, what if we lose world reserve currency status? What happens then?
And that's coming.
What happens then?
Michael? That's already happening with the BRIC nations. It's happening with OPEC. China, Russia, et cetera. That's where we're headed with this. It's already happening. There's a lot of countries starting to trade outside of it and individually, back and forth with it. So that's already happening. Whenever that switch is flipped, it will happen, and it will happen overnight to us. And then we are in big, big trouble. But that's already taken place because those nations are sick and tired of us being able to do what we want and be able to basically leverage them by printing money and forcing everybody else to deal in the dollar. So that is actually happening already as we speak. That's taking place. So it's just happening slower because it's happening kind of individually, and it would be a big shock to the system. So that's don't kid yourself on that one. That's coming, and that's already basically kind of here. So. For those that are paying attention.
If you are not paying attention, this is what's coming to you. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will continue with Mike Shower. I want to talk about that intercept that took place off the coast. Since Mike was a fighter jock, he'll give us a little bit of insight into that, and we'll talk about that. We will continue the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more in Mike Shower after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Sorry, I'm just reading Harold's comments. I think most people have Harold blocked now because nobody else really responds to him, but I'm just chortling because he just I think he just likes to hear himself talk about some of this stuff sometimes.
I don't know, dude. I've mentally blocked people like that for years now. It's not worth my time. I don't give them Michael, I don't even give them an iota of my thought anymore because it's not worth it. I'm never going to get those seconds or minutes back. So I just completely ignore them now. Yeah. 100%. The Kelseys and the Forbages and the rest of them are just like, whatever, dude. You ain't worth my time. Yeah. You're just not. So.
Michael Gerhardt says, I'm not allowed to like your show today. I'm being limited by Facebook. Dang. Well, that's too bad. So that means that at least 5 of you need to like the show today because Michael can't like it. Facebook is limiting him. So 5 of you at least more need
to like it. Wait a minute. Zuckerberg is trying to reinvent himself as a middle of the road guy now.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. All right. So Kevin said something, and I've lost the comment here in all the comments, but there was a meet and greet. When is this happening? What's going on? Tell me about this.
On the
Michelle
7th. And I are trying. Yeah, we are trying to help as many candidates as we can, and so we had that fundraiser for some a couple weeks ago up here in the Valley, and there's a few more that we're trying to help, and some of them, as you can tell when you're looking, I know you and I talked about it, is outside of the district, right? I mean, there's a couple races with multiple candidates in the Matsu, and there's one that's certainly pretty contentious based on the incumbent, but what we've noticed is the Matsu doesn't have a whole lot of races going on and not really much in the way of Democrats. So we're trying to reach out outside of the district, outside of the Matsu, I should say, and help candidates, especially in Anchorage and elsewhere, that maybe need a little more attention, maybe need a little more resource as far as like funding, trying to get them some money to help out, because especially some of those Anchorage races with these unions and stuff, they have so much money, so much union money and manpower to spend on these races for their left wingers that it's like these are candidates that are, good Republicans, conservatives, whatever, are struggling. So even though it's getting late in the game, one of them is Mia Costello, who I served in the Senate with, and she's running for one of the House districts down there under Clayman. And then McCabe up here as well, Representative McCabe. And so we're just trying to help some of the candidates, some in district, some in the Matsu, some outside of Michael, just to give them a boost where we can, because, money's tight and we don't have, unions on our side to dump hundreds of thousands of dollars into all their preferred candidates. I mean, we're lucky if we can get thousands of dollars. It's kind of like the same thing with the Yes on Two. It's like, they got $8 million to spend. We got 60,000, so.
Yeah, that's
David and Goliath over and over again.
But, David and Goliath in the state of Alaska has worked many times. I remember when they've had that first run at the PFD in 1999, and they spent something like $4 million promoting it, and the anti-raid people only had like 350,000 or something, and it was still defeated 83 to 83%. So I mean, it can happen, and I think you guys are in good positions on the Yes on One. I think that's going to be or Yes on Two. I think that's going to be a continuing deal there. I think they're going to do good.
Well, remember, David actually won that battle.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
David and Goliath, but he took him out. So, it's just, but that's what it is. That is the reality of it. You can't say, we're doing great. Well, we are, but from a resource perspective, Republicans are almost always behind the Democrats because the Democrats pool their money. The unions are one of their biggest backers. Even when you have like the big union, what was it, the auto workers or machinists or whatever it was, and they said, yeah, we're not going to endorse anybody this year. That's because you're preferred Democrat, you leadership types, which are as political monsters as anybody I've ever seen in the unions. You're going to take your union people's money and do what you want with it. And in this case, your union was so overwhelmingly for Trump that you just said, well, we're just not going to endorse this year.
Right.
That's the problem with unions, Michael. I don't have a problem with unions. It's what they do politically with their power and money.
Exactly. Brian does make a valid point. Nick Begich is the only one talking about debt. Nancy's girl, not so much. So of all the candidates out there, Nick is talking about the debt.
He's a businessman.
Yeah,
he understands the impact.
All right.
It makes sense.
All right, let's get to it. Here we go. We're jumping back into it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
All right, we're continuing now. Mike Shower is our guest. And this is a day we talk about all different kinds of stuff. I mean, this is the smorgasbord show. We just kind of talk about whatever we feel like. We were just talking about some of the national politics of the elections and things that are going on. But I was thinking about you, Mike, while I was watching these videos and seeing this news reporting on what was going on in the ADIZ, the Air Defense Zone, and this most recent incident between Russian forces and a group of American F-16s out there in the zone. You've seen the video. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, an Su-35, I guess it was, zoomed by an F-16. I mean, literally within, it looks like about 25 feet. Does a zoom by.
It was inside of a wingspan.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was crazy. You watch this video, and it was. I mean, reckless would be the first word that I would use, but also basic. It basically was an intimidation tactic. So, as a fighter pilot, as an F-22 driver, and you watch this and you see what's going on. What are your thoughts as you look at this? I mean, from a standpoint of one, as a fighter pilot, two, kind of the geopolitical aspects of it. Give me your full rundown of this event, because I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
So a couple things. So back on December or in Thanksgiving 2007, I actually had the first real world use of the F-22 because we were sitting alert and we got scrambled. I was a squadron commander, and myself and Omar Bradley was with me as my wingman, and we got scrambled way out over the water. Met a couple Tu-95 Russian Bears. So I've actually been there and did stuff in the Eagle back in the 90s up here. So I've actually done this for real. But at the time we were out there, didn't have any Russian fighters escorting. They're starting to do that now. Even the Chinese, you may remember, came up. We're working with the Russians a few months ago. So the level of cooperation between those two countries is troubling, especially with their push into the Arctic. So from a perspective of how this plays out, there are internationally accepted standards between countries and militaries, air forces in this case, even navies, about how we conduct this. Because if you're not careful how this plays out, you can end up having an accident where there have been mid-air collisions and people die. And this can push you over the line into basically a broader crisis, right? Especially if we're on kind of a hair trigger. Like I will tell you right now, have we been on a war footing? Like we're about to go to war, or it's getting real tense out there, something like Israel, Iran, right on their border. If this kind of thing had happened, that is right on the edge of the rules of engagement. It does depend on what they say, because they can be pretty tight, right, on trying to prevent something from happening that's not planned. But that's right on the edge of a hostile act when you do something like this and get that close and close that quickly and dust somebody off like this. Not only is it unprofessional and dangerous, it is a complete and utter violation of the international agreed upon standards of how we treat each other as militaries when we meet in these places like this neutral territory. And like I said, it's right on the edge of a hostile act, because this could have been perceived as the guy's closing on him for either, especially when you see him kind of coming up from behind. So he's moving quick. It didn't just happen. He's accelerating for some time to get to that speed and get that close. If the other Viper guy's wingman is sitting back watching this, because they were not even close to the Russian Bear. They were 200 yards away, at least, from the bomber. And there's usually two of them if there's one. And if the other Viper guy was sitting back watching this and he sees that kind of closure and that guy's pointing at him running in and we're on a hair trigger, Mike, you know what he's going to think? He's going to go shoot him. He's going to go for a gunshot.
He thinks he thinks it's an attack run, right? Because it looks like
correct.
It looks like an attack run.
Exactly. He shoots, and the next thing they're shooting. The next thing that's that hair trigger moment. Is why I've been so key and against using U.S. forces in Ukraine and U.S. weaponry and U.S. aircraft, because they were talking about a no-fly zone. And go, you're going to get us in a war with your stupidity on your desire. It seems like for the Democrats, all of a sudden have become the war party when they used to say, "Oh, they're the anti-war party." No, they're not. They're marching us into World War III in Ukraine. And like, you don't put U.S. aircraft and troops and stuff on the ground. That's a hair trigger. You're going to cause something that you can't control, like this that happened with the Flanker and the Viper. So it was a unprofessional, dangerous violation of every standard we have to prevent this from happening. And Sullivan was right to speak out against this and say this is absolutely unacceptable. But even more troubling, Michael, is I'm watching this push. It's kind of like the bully, right? You keep punching until somebody punches back. And that's kind of what Russia and China are doing in the Arctic against us right now up here along this ADIS. This kind of stuff, in my opinion, was probably, and they'll deny it, of course. It was just one pilot and he was off. We've already disciplined him, and they're giving him high fives and giving him free bottles of vodka back at the base. And they say, "Good job, comrade." My guess, Michael, is I've been talking to guys doing this still in the business, and they're seeing more aggressive tactics. I think this is an actual intentional push to see how far they can push us. And I circle back to do my best Jim Psaki. I circle back to how I started this conversation, where what we're seeing from Russia and China and others is more aggression, and they're pushing to see how far they can get away with it, because we have an absolute vacuum of leadership from the United States federal government. We don't have a president right now. And God help us if we have a cackling idiot that had a IQ score of 78 and failed her first bar test lead this nation, so-called, for 4 years. I don't know what we're going to do, Michael. We will literally be the laughing stock of the world. And I'm not here to say who may be the best person. I'm just saying, if that's who leads, considering what we just had for 4 years, that you can expect this to accelerate and get worse, because they're pushing us to see what we're going to do. Well, there's my full assessment of what I saw.
And my question then becomes, because I think your bully analogy is good, but the question then becomes, I mean, how do you deal with it? I mean, do you then do you then snuggle up close to the bombers and fly super close to do you also provocate? Do you push? I mean, how far can they push us, and how do we not escalate it? As a fighter jock and as a guy who's been out there, what's the answer? What is
you're going to love this answer, and you're never going to guess what I'm going to say. You do nothing. You don't even fly. I suggested this to the 4-star PACAF commander years and years ago when they were running us into the ground, and we were wasting sortie after sortie, and hour after hour, scrambling all the time to meet the Russians because they got real busy. And I'm like, "Sir, why are we doing this? Why are we letting them push us? How about we just keep training for the real war?" And we look at the Russians and basically give them the middle finger. Yeah, you fly along radius all you want. We don't care. We're not going to burn our gas. We're not going to waste our time. We know how to scramble and go intercept a bomber. Give me a break. We're going to continue to, practice for the real battles and the things that we have to do if the balloon goes up. And they actually, and I'm not saying it was because of anything I said, but they actually a year or two later started doing that. It was like a random generator. They said, like, yeah, every third or fourth or sixth intercept, or incursion, we'll go out and take a look. My point is, Michael, when they do this kind of stuff, ignore them. It's like the knucklehead commenters you have on your show. Why waste your breath on them? Don't just look at them and go, "We don't care. We're the United States. We're the U.S. Air Force. We don't care what you do. Go fly your stupid little bombers and fighters around our ADIS all day long. We don't care. We're going to ignore you because we think you're irrelevant." And you know what? And if we really want to poke back, then send our B-52s or we have a whole bunch of ISR platforms. Let's send them along their ADIS and just piss them off. Play the same game. But my point is, don't let the bully get you in trouble with him at the principal's office. Just look at him and go, "You're an idiot. I'm going to so disrespect you. I'm going to ignore you and let your provocation just sit out there and waste your own money and gas." That's what I would do, and say, "You're irrelevant to me," because we can intercept them all day long, Michael. We just don't care. So why waste our time? That's what I would do. There you go.
Yeah. So. No, I mean, I think that's a valid option. Like you said, I mean, if we know it, and I guess my question to you then would become, how would we know? And this is a technical question. This is just from my knowledge, folks. I'm sorry, but technical question. If we're only intercepting, 1 out of 3, 1 out of 5, whatever, on some random schedule, how do we know if they're not really pushing beyond the 80s? I mean, how would you know when it's just a test or an exercise, and how would you know that it potentially could be the real thing? What's the difference there?
Couple reasons, Michael. First of all, there could always be a sneak attack, right? That can always happen at any time, because they can go fly armed and there's nothing we can do about it. They have a right in international airspace to fly nuclear equipped aircraft. We do, other countries. So that happens, and you can never be 100% prepared. But I will tell you this, first of all, if they were going to fly just 2 Russian Tu-95 Bear bombers with hypersonic missiles on them, nuclear equipped, and that's all they did and attack us, well, they're idiots. They're never going to do that, because they're going to get such an overwhelming response from the rest of our nuclear triad that Russia gets wiped out, and then they launch on us, and so the mad theory goes of mutually assured destruction. Nobody really wants that, and you would never attack a country equipped like we are one way, right? If you were going to do that, Mike, you want to do like the EMP thing and try to shut down the whole network or cyber attack. And that kind of leads into my point. I'm not going to get into methods of how we would necessarily track all those things, but we know, just like we're tracking stupid Chinese balloons, right, from their point of launch,
right.
We know what they're doing. I'm just making the contention. I think strategically, you just ignore it and go, we're not going to waste our time. We'll intercept you once in a while just to let you know we're out here, that we can, or maybe we need some training. But most of the time, just ignore them and move on and do what we have to do. But I go back to, if you saw, there are so many indicators that a country is getting ready to attack. There's virtually no way to hide that anymore, from how they stand down to when they bring their forces up, the chatter that's out there, the cyber side of things, communication, logistics. There is so much to it. They would be moving naval forces and aircraft. There are so many things to be taking place for it to be the real thing, to answer your direct question, that we're already on a war footing if that kind of thing is happening. A sneak attack by a couple Bear bombers ain't going to happen. The only real sneak attack, honestly, that would have no indication for, and that's everybody's nightmare scenario, is the submarines.
Right.
If all of a sudden Russia or China or the U.S. or anybody decided to do a sneak attack on a country, it would most likely, I'm talking like that kind of massive attack, it would be via submarines, because they're always sitting out there armed off coastlines just waiting for the call. And they would be launching stuff that would be on the U.S. coastline in minutes, as opposed to the 30 minutes all the way across the Pacific or the North Pole. So, long answer to your short question, because there's a lot involved in that. If something was really taking place, there are so many indicators. You think Israel doesn't know Iran was getting ready to launch on them, and there's only so much they can do, and they kind of have to wait yesterday for that massive attack from Iran. But that I go back to, I guarantee Israel can see all the things. They're basically in a state of war right now, and so they know that Iran's mobilizing. They're watching it, satellites, everything that's happening. There's only so much you can do until the war kicks off, right? Or they hit you, and you're basically allowed internationally, if you will, the right of self-defense to hit back. So again, I know that was a long answer and it kind of rambled a little bit, but you're talking decades of things to talk about, of how many things play into that factor of a country that was going to do the sneak attack. And that's why I go back to, it's just blow them off. It's a waste of our time and resources. I'm not saying every time, do it kind of randomly and kind of go, yeah, whatever, bully. I'm not even going to deal with you, kind of a thing, because they're not going to attack like that. That's not how it's going to play out. And there's so much more at stake. If they were going to really attack, Michael, we would have forces on standby. We'd have caps out there doing something. It'd be a whole different game than what we're playing right now. Whole different game.
Well, and I think, like I said, I think it's a viable strategy, what you're talking about, because you're right. Going back to the bully analogy, you just ignore them, and that takes their power away. And I think that is. I think that's a great point. So anyway, interesting geopolitical discussion on that. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll give Mike the floor to talk about whatever subject he wanted to talk about today, because I've gotten all mine out of the way. So we'll be back here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Mike Shower is our guest. We continue in just a moment. Back with more after this.
running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Mike Shower is our guest, and this is just kind of this kind of thought experiment. Just is, it was one of those things. I guess this is why I read The Hunt for Red October when I was like 16, 17 years old, because I was fascinated by all the machinations and geopolitical maneuvering behind the scenes. Because it is, like you said, we're on the brink here. I mean, even the Drudge. What was the Drudge headline this morning that I was looking at? It says, world on edge, Holy Land war zone, missile attack on Israel, Iran military failure. I mean, these are all the headlines of what's going on. But yeah, it's a little spooky out there. It's a little spooky, and there's not anything we can really do about it as individuals. But it does show that we need to take a clearer lead in what's going on and not be going to the beach and tanning in Delaware or letting our wives run the cabinet meetings.
Well, it is like I said, Michael, it really, and I don't say this lightly, and I've never actually said this before openly, that, I think we're on the brink of a World War III type event happening. That's a trigger that we just can't stop, and partly because of our lack of leadership from our current Democrat administration. And it could be any administration. If they were showing this lack of leadership, I would say the same thing. But I guess my point, like I said, when you look at all the different indicators, there are so many things happening. There's so much going on in this world. I don't even have the minutes to talk about them on the break. But when you add them all together, and like I said, I've spent my lifetime studying this and still do, it is concerning to me, because there's just a whole lot of indicators that are all coming together. And I think most people are still kind of sticking their head in the sand and not really thinking, oh, it's never happened, it'll be fine. I'm like, no, there are a certain number of events that are lining up here that just expand in a way we can't control. And you go back to Israel and the holy sites and Jerusalem, and that part of the world has just played such a role in world history in recent times. And there's like just this thing about it, right? It's just this thing about that area that just tends to expand and consume us from around the planet. And so many things flow from that. And that's where I go, and I know some people go roll their eyes when I say the spiritual component of it. But Michael, when you add in what's going on in Israel with the Bible and Muslims and all the stuff happening, that has a way of spreading through the world that you can't predict, where we go, well, typically the Germans and the Europeans in World War II, and you can kind of have the sides, or the Soviets and the Americans, freedom versus communism. It's not like that. You get to this area of mentality that people do things that you just wouldn't expect. Iran would never do that. I'm like, really? Because they're kind of crazy. They're not just people that are like you and I that want to live our lives and protect, our country for our children's sake and don't want to die, right? But when you're dealing with people that are martyrs that want to die for the cause, I mean, it's just, my point is, people are not necessarily thinking about how the Middle East may go into a full meltdown here, because you have people that are more than willing to pull the trigger and want, in fact, something to happen. If you go to the 12th Imam and see how some of them are, believing that same thing with the rapture, and others on the Christian side of things, evangelical Christians. I mean, there are things here that can come into play that some people actually want to happen, where the rest of us that are just kind of sane,
right?
We don't want the world to melt down, but
right.
There are people that do, and some of them have power. And so it's just, I add all these things together is why I'm saying this. I'm like, we are on the most hair trigger I can remember in our lifetime of going, we're right on the edge of something cracking here that could be bad. And so I'm not hopeful that it does. I mean, I would love to see the U.S. step back into a leadership role and let's kind of pull ourselves back off the ledge. I just think people, like always, where do I go with this? As you and I sit and talk on the radio, I look at everybody, just be prepared.
Right.
Be as best prepared as you can be, because that's all most of us can do. Make sure you got some food and water and medicines, and be prepared to weather the storm. I mean, Michael, let's just go just pure, not even all this world stuff going on. There's a longshoreman strike right now. And while it's East Coast and Gulf of Alaska, who raise your hand if you live at the end of the logistics chain?
Yeah, no,
that should
exactly.
Be all of us up here.
I mean,
right?
Yeah, thankfully it's not a West Coast thing, but at the same time, it's going to have a ripple effect. It's going to have a ripple effect. Yeah. And boy, that guy, the longshoreman union boss, oof, man, talk about dark and I watched the video of him basically say, we're going to take you. I mean, you're going to feel the pain. I mean, it was just oof. Rick says, this is an interesting question. I don't know if you've been following this close enough, especially ground forces, but Rick says, Mike, what percentage of Russia's military has been depleted due to the Ukraine conflict? I mean, I know
a lot.
I mean, their ground forces
Yeah.
especially have really taken a beating on that.
Yeah, but remember, to answer Rick's question, the reason why it's less important what happens to their ground forces is because the kind of things we're talking about here are not like Russia and the United States moving millions of troops to a land war in Asia, right? To go back to Princess Bride, a land war in Asia. My point to this, and I'll do it in seconds if we can take it on the radio, is that it's about strategic forces. It's about other things: cyber warfare, EMPs, nuclear capability,
UAVs,
that's the stuff that's
right? Yeah.
There's other things beyond the, a million troops on the ground. That's not the player here. It really isn't.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's again, different it's a long distance conflict, not an in your face kind of conflict. All right. We got to go, and get this going on. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense, Liberty Based, Free Thinking Radio.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay, we're continuing now. Mike Shower is our guest. The Shower Hour of Power, final segment. I told Mike I'd give him his head here. He could, he could take it wherever he wanted to go. We were just continuing our discussion on potential military conflicts. It's a fascinating subject to me, not necessarily to everybody, but I was just saying, I think I said it during the break there. This must be why I read Hunt for Red October Red Storm Rising rather, when I was 16 or 17. I couldn't put the damn thing down. I was actually on vacation with my family in Hawaii, and I was on the beach reading this book because it was so good. Anyway, Mike,
I was a freshman at the Air Force Academy reading that book. It was actually required reading. I can remember sitting in my stupid bunk. I say stupid, but I was sitting in my little bunk as a dually fourth classman reading that book. Just like, oh my goodness! So I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it was a senior in high school, and I was reading that book, and it was just like, wow. I mean, it was mind blowing. How everything went down on that. But so, Mike, what else? What else you've been thinking about? What other thoughts you want to share with us today?
Most of my time, like we started off the program, has been spent trying to help candidates, good folks, to see, have our best shot at having so-called Republican control of both bodies, and hope that we could move on judicial reform, election reform, fiscal policy, those kinds of things. Because if one of the bodies is thrown again, like let's say Chuck Kopp comes back, because he was beating Craig Johnson. Chuck Kopp joined with the Democrats. I mean, this is the kind of people that are winning that are going to potentially be back in the House as Republicans, but they're going to join Democrats. We know it. They've done it before. They'll do it again. Same history with same problems we're looking at in the Senate right now. Who will join with the Democrats again and give them power? So we're trying to help the best candidates that we can on one side of the thing, of the fence, if you will. The other side, we've been spending a ton of time primarily on the ballot measure 2, because I know that's so important for the future of the state. We've been giving our time and money and putting up signs and writing articles. I just fired off an article yesterday to every newspaper in the state. We'll see who has the intellectual honesty to actually, print them as a counter to the lies and misinformation that the No On To campaign is using, like military. They can't vote if we repeal this. Are you really? I mean, somebody says they really should have a legal suit filed against them for that, Mike, because it's flat out lie. And knowingly spreading false information is at least a misdemeanor, if not a Class C felony in the state of Alaska, because people were showing me the references to it. And the No On To people are flat out doing it. I'm like, hey, Attorney General, how about you step up and file suit? Because you can't do this in statutes. You can't lie about that kind of information to people knowingly, and they know they're lying. Military people could vote before ballot measure 2 and ranked choice voting. They can vote right now, and they'd be able to vote after we repeal. I was never denied my right to vote as a military member. I've been a resident of Alaska for 30 years.
Right.
And I never once, active duty or since, been denied that right. So it's just a bunch of flat out lies. So spending a lot of time with that. But I will tell you today, we've talked a lot about ballot measure 2 and I'll say it again and again as often as I can for the next 4.5 weeks. Yes on two, yes on two, yes on two, because they've written it that's confusing, and I'm still talking to people every day that are, how do I vote on that? How do you not know this at this point? Yes on two means you want to repeal ranked choice voting. 1, go vote. 2, do a little research on the candidates and do your best and vote who you believe is going to be the best representative. The doggone it, folks, we've got 2 ballot measures and both of them matter. No on 1, yes on 2. And we've talked a lot about 2, but I want to talk briefly on 1 this morning because this, like you said, this is like the fastest hour in radio. I can't believe how fast this hour goes. But I am getting more concerned, just like what happened with ranked choice voting 4 years ago, where I was so focused on other stuff that last 6 months is where we really pivoted and go, uh-oh, we're about to lose this battle because they had so much money and kind of snuck it in. Well, they're doing the same thing with ballot measure 1. Most people are all hearing talking about ranked choice voting and ballot measure 2. What's this ballot measure 1 and how did this come about? What do we? So I've been trying to spend a little time reading. I'm like, have you looked at that? Because I have. And there's 3 basic provisions of that. It's, once again, it's the lie we go. Dark money, when they exempted themselves from dark money 4 years ago, and they're using dark money right now. I posted on it in social media yesterday. I'm like, all I did was take a picture of the 2 signs, right? And the yes on 2, the top 3 contributors, all Alaskans. You look on the no on 2, top 3 contributors, all lower 48 wealthy left-wing groups, right? It's like, come on, folks, do a little research. All you got to do is look at their own advertisements, and it shows where all the money's coming from, right? And so the same kind of thing with the ballot measure 1. The first part is the increase of minimum wage. In itself, not terrible. I wouldn't jump up and down and die on that hill. It's a couple bucks over the years. A lot of places are already paying it just to be able to get people to show up to work, right? So yeah, whatever. But it becomes more problematic when you get to section 2, which talks about forcing sick leave on small businesses, because you go, okay, now you're getting to that area that they're going to start demanding. Here we go with the uniparty socialism. We're going to dictate with central control from the federal government, or in this case, the state government, how businesses are going to run, right? With no consideration to the downstream consequences. But for a small business to have to start giving that kind of sick leave when they only have a few employees, that's going to be problematic, Michael, because they're having a hard time getting people to show up already. So now you're getting into the affect private sector.
Right.
Probably start to make it very difficult for a lot of these small businesses that are already operating on razor thin margins to survive. Not just the increase in minimum wage, but now the sick leave requirements, because that's a lot. For some of these, it could be like a month of work. And then, that's not, whatever. I'm like, that's 1 out of 12 months when they're already struggling and barely getting by. So that's the second part that becomes more troubling. But I'll tell you where I'm really most concerned, and I can't get a straight answer, but I think I have an idea. It's that part about no religious and political meetings. I'm like, what does that mean?
Right.
And what does that do?
Yeah.
I think
that's the
whole
poison
point
pill.
of ballot measure. Yes, it's all about that.
Yeah.
Because that's setting us up for lawfare. That's the Colorado Baker. That's the union play that already are grandfathered in for all this. And I'm looking at a church and going, and you're not getting political, and you're not telling your people to go vote, because all of a sudden somebody comes along and they do that left-wing plant into a church and go, they're having political meetings, shut them down.
Right.
You think that, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
You know what? You know how many times I've heard them say, that's never going to happen until it does? Michael, I'm telling you, ballot measure 1 is a red herring.
Yeah,
it is all about getting at that portion of it. That's it right there. And that's
that's the poison pill, and they make it palatable by putting the minimum wage and the sick leave up there. So those are more palatable things, right? And then but that meeting thing, because first of all I was like, who's having but the more I thought about it, the more I got into it. When you start talking about political meetings, that means that any shop that wants to organize or is, you've got some agitator in there that wants to get a union set up in there, the owners can't say, look, here's the story. Here's where we're at. And here's why, we can't have a union, or we shouldn't have they can't do that, because then that's political. So it silences them from being able to protect their own businesses from basically being in a takeover situation. But the unions could do it. They could talk about it. They can go behind the scenes. This is the poison pill.
Something. Yeah. Look at that. And imagine, and think about the faith base, Michael. We have a ton of churches in places like the Mat-Su and East Fairbanks, North Pole, Kenai Peninsula. And all of a sudden you got that left winger in there, and they're a plant on purpose. And they come in and they go, we're having political meetings in this church, which are totally legal, totally allowed by the Supreme Court today. Churches can get absolutely political and not lose their 501c3 status. We went to a brief last year. And the basically the nation's leading expert on that, who's argued in front of the Supreme Court and won multiple times, said churches absolutely can and should be involved to tell their people, educate them on the system and voting and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely should be. Point is, now you pass a law in Alaska that says no religious and political meetings. Imagine you're a pastor and you want to talk about politics. How's that going to play out? And you got the left winger that sues you. You got the Colorado baker. All of a sudden they come and say, you're going to do this no matter what. Okay, comrade, Mr. Brown Shirt SS Waffen troop that's going to come in and tell me what I'm going to do. I mean, that's where we are with this, Michael. They are legislating from the point of a government gun. That's what this is. Ballot Measure 1 has almost nothing to do with the minimum wage or the sick leave. It has everything to do with the lawfare they are setting us up for with that, so they can put people in place, fire off these lawsuits, and change the law via the courts, which lean left in Alaska. I'm telling you right now, connect the dots. That's what Ballot Measure 1 is about. And unfortunately, I bet you it's going to pass because we're a day late and a dollar short, and we haven't paid enough attention to it. And I'm trying to start kind of screaming the clarion call from the mountaintops, but I bet you this one's going to pass, and you wait. Lawsuits will shortly follow at some point about religious and political meetings. The unions are going to be jumping up in arms. You watch, brother. I'm telling you right now, I can see the poison pills. It's just how many. I mean, I only have so much time and resource to fight, right? And
this one kind of came under the radar because even I only started paying attention to it about a month and a half ago, and I was like, wait a second. First of all, there's a detrimental effect to business owners. I mean, it is. Like you said, I mean, McDonald's and the fast food joints, that are hiring the kids out of school are paying $15-16 an hour. So the minimum wage thing is really not that big a deal to begin with. The sick leave is obviously going to cost some people. And what it'll do is it'll end up forcing people to move all their full-time employees to part-time employees because they can't afford to do it, which will create another problem of having enough people to cover all the shifts, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's not necessarily going to help anything. But this whole meeting thing, which I thought was a solution in search of a problem until I really started thinking about it. You're right. This is the poison pill component of us that I'm really worried about.
Now, this is when I wish you and I were both millionaires, Mike, and we could just write the check and just come and say, oh, you got $8 million for the saving ranked choice voting. I'm going to give $16 million to make sure we repeal that thing. Oh, you got, $4 or $5 million for the ballot measure 1. Well, I'm going to write a $10 million check and make sure we inundate the airway. I wish we had time and resources, brother. We're spread thin. There's only so much we can do. Your radio show, I'll get on the others and social media, probably write a few articles on that too over the next 4 or 5 weeks. But this is going to be a tough one because, like you said, like they do, they're smart. They'll set it up so that people see just the minimum wage and the sick leave and go, this is great. And they won't even think about the third section of that bill or that ballot measure that is going to be the poison pill that is going to be the Colorado baker. It's coming. Mark my words. Come back and we'll talk 3 or 4 years down the road. You watch for what's going to happen. I'm telling you, they don't do anything like this without thoughts 5, 10, 15 years down the road. That's how they play the game. They're being strategic. And I guarantee you that's what this is about. But I don't know how to fight it with the time.
Yeah. Again, you could only got so much energy, so much fight in you. That's for sure. Mike Shower, our guest. We're out of time for today. The Michael Duke Show continues tomorrow. Hoping to have Ben Carpenter on. We'll see what he has to say. And somebody else. And then Friday, of course, is Firearms Friday. Folks, be kind, love one another, live well. Thanks for coming in and joining us today. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio. Don't grow weary in well-doing. All right, Mike, final thoughts here before I cut you loose for the day.
I think that's it, brother. We've covered all the big stuff. Let's just keep our fingers crossed and pray that the world does not step across the brink in the next, by the time you and I can talk next Wednesday.
Yeah. Let's hope we're all still around. Is that what you're saying? Let's
hope the horizon's not glowing orange and the world hasn't gone stupid crazy by next Wednesday. And we need the emergency shower hour of power on the Duke Show on Monday or something. So we'll see. But I don't know, folks. Just keep your head about you. Keep doing important stuff. I will keep asking you, get the message out on ballot measure 1 and ballot measure 2, because people are still just seem to be clueless. And I would ask each of your listeners and your social circle, and your social media, your friends, your family, tell them, let them choose. They'll choose how they do, but at least try to educate them, spread some articles about, put some words out there, tell people, hey, do you know anything about ballot measure 1 and 2, and explain it to them, even at work, wherever you're comfortable. But that's what I'm asking, Mike, because you and I are two people. But if we have 100 people listening or 500 people listening, and they talk to 2 or 3 other people, the next thing you know, it's 2 or 5 or 10 or 50,000 people listening. So that's how we're going to get the word out. Please, folks, please spread the word, share some data, educate people, because we just can't do it by ourselves. We need your help. That's my last plea.
No, I absolutely, I believe it. All right, Mike, thank you for coming on board. We will we'll see you next week, maybe? Question mark.
Possibly, maybe, sure. I might be there. I don't know. Who knows? We'll talk to you next week.
I'm not even gonna text you. Not even gonna text you. All right, we'll see you later, my friend. Thanks for coming on board. All right, folks, we're out of time for today. We will see you tomorrow. Be kind, love one another, live well. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll see you then. Have a good day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.